Welcome to Fox 43's Free Agent Frenzy. I'm here with Alex Cawley. I'm Cale Ahern. We're here to talk about MLB free agents. So every year, MLB Trade Rumors, a self-described clear house of MLB content, gives out a free agent predictions list every year. And every year, they also have been running a contest as well. So last year was our first entry into the contest. Went back and looked at the results. We did okay. It's a little hard. The contest winner last year actually had about 22 of the 50 right. So a decent amount. We were in the teens.
Yeah.
There were a lot of stuff that we agreed on last year. A lot of the teams, a lot of the players we had going to the same spots. This year, completely different. We're not agreeing on much, except the top guy, and that is Shohei Ohtani. And I think that's what everybody's already talking about on Google Trends today. He's already getting the search hits. So Shohei Ohtani is what everybody's talking about. And we both have him landing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I just kind of feel like this has been a move that has been like years in the making. Last offseason, I thought there was a lot of opportunity for them to go out there, spend some cash, and they really didn't. You know, they had Freddie Freeman the year before. They had Mookie Betts a couple years prior to that. But really, Shohei Ohtani is kind of been, I think, their prize in their eye, and they've been saving their money, and now they're going to go out, get their guy. Obviously, you know, coming off the injury, he's just going to DH this year and won't pitch till 2025, but assuming that he's coming back to pitch, which is everything that I've read, I mean, you got a staff ace, you have a DH, and with a top three of Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani at the top of your lineup, I don't think there's much better across baseball.
I think it's amazing because just a few years ago, we're talking about this could be the $400 million man, and that's considered a good price for him now. I can only imagine what it would have been had he not been injured this past year. But yeah, I just think the ability, especially the Dodgers kind of have the blueprint for how they paid Mookie. You can space it out over a long time, but yeah, like you said, I think this has been a move that we've just been waiting for, and the baseball world's been waiting for.
I think he is the first $500 million man. MLB Trade Rumors had him at $530 million over 12 years. I dropped it just a little bit to $515 because even that's crazy to me, but that's the going rate for baseball players these days. It's kind of nuts. The second guy on the list is a guy who really had a great free agent walk year, Cody Bellinger with the Cubs. You know, he kind of struggled the past couple years with LA, with the Dodgers, with injuries, and then he goes to the Cubs and has another almost MVP kind of like season. And now he's really going to cash in the free agent market. A lot of teams, you know, are probably going to be in play for him. I do think probably he's going to get a little bit overpaid because I don't know if he's going to be able to keep, you know, that production up till his late 30s. But I think a team like the San Francisco Giants are just dying for a bat. After last year they missed out on Aaron Judge, Carlos Correa. I think a guy like Cody Bellinger is a perfect fit for the Giants.
Yeah, I've got him going back to Chicago, staying with the Cubs. I really wanted to see some kind of a reunion with the Dodgers, but for reasons we discussed at number one, I think he goes back to Chicago, gets a nice payday out of it. I mean, he was their best hitter towards the end of the season by far.
Absolutely, and the Cubs going to have money to spend, absolutely, so totally makes sense. All right, number three, and this is the first of the Japanese pitchers on the list. Please forgive me on pronunciations, been working on it a little bit. So Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I think that was pretty good, actually. You know, he is, actually, you know, they're talking, a lot of the experts are saying he's the best pitcher to ever come over from Japan. I mean, Ohtani pitched over in Japan. You had Masahiro Tanaka, Yu Darvish, Hideo Nomo, so a lot of guys that, you know, came over, were successful, and people are saying that this guy might even be the best. One thing, you know, that concerns me a little bit, he's a little bit smaller. He's a 5'9" frame, I think only about 175, so not your typical MLB starting pitcher kind of thing, but he's shown that he can pitch. He has shown over the past, I think, 3-4 years, he's been there the Japanese pitcher of the year. It's pretty incredible. So I think the New York Yankees are dying for starting pitching. Obviously, right with cash, easy to blow, and with the Japanese pitcher, you have to pay a posting fee. So, you know, he's going to get a big contract. With that contract, based on how much he gets paid, the posting fee increases. So I think a team like the Yankees, somebody with big money, is going to go after him. So that's where I think he lands.
I've got him going to a New York team that is not afraid to open the checkbook recently, but I've got him going to the Mets. They tried, obviously, some big signings last year, and it did not work. They brought in Scherzer, which just never went their way. So go younger. They're willing to pay the guy. And obviously, as you mentioned the names, there's less hesitation about signing a pitcher from Japan these days than there was maybe even just 10 years ago. But I've got him going to the Mets. And like you said, if you're looking for something to nitpick, it's the height,
right,
and that's it.
Absolutely. And the Mets added Kodai Senga last offseason, had a great rookie year with the Mets. So I think that probably adds a layer of comfortability there if they were able to be teammates. And the Mets, man, they're in a weird position where they're looking for the future, not necessarily 2024, but he fits that as well because he's going to be signing a long-term deal. The next one might be the top left-handed pitcher on the market is Blake Snell, coming off a year where he might win the NL Cy Young Award. He really had a great walk year into free agency. Not a guy that I would necessarily be trying to add at the top of the rotation for what he's going to cost, but I think a team like the Boston Red Sox are dying for starting pitching depth. They have a lot of familiarity with him as he pitched with the Rays for several years at the beginning of his career, so they've seen him up close and personal, and they recently had a lot of Tampa Bay executives in their front office, so I believe there's probably a little bit of love there left for him in Boston, so I think that's where he lands.
I've got to go to Phillies. Philadelphia, obviously, Aaron Nola is the big question mark. They were 4 years, $100 million away from each other the last time they tried to talk. So, all indications kind of indicate that Nola's going to be heading out of town. You mentioned he's about to get a Cy Young. So I think you bring him in. Obviously, he expects to play well, and Philly has, the bar's been set, and they're looking to raise the bar even more. So I think if they want to show that they're competing, bring in Snell. That's
what I've heard on WIP the past couple of days as well, is Blake Snell, and that Aaron Nola is going to be heading out of town. Actually leads us to our next arm. So I'm going, this is with my heart here, more than the head probably, that he's staying. 6 for 165 is kind of where I think it lands. I think $200 million is way too much for Aaron Nola. Look, he's 30 years old. He has pitched a ton of innings in his career. Compared to Snell, I'm pretty sure he's like almost 400 more innings. Obviously, Snell's dealt with a little bit more injuries in his career, but Nola's been pretty homer prone in recent years. And his last, this past season, he had a 4.5 ERA here entering the offseason. So I kind of think, yeah, he's going to see high money offers, but I kind of think he has a level of comfortability in Philadelphia where he might say to his agent, look, I might sacrifice 10, 15 million just to stay where I want to be. It's not what you hear typically nowadays in baseball, but that's where I'm going with this one.
I mean, if he wants that sponsorship with Greenland to stick around,
right,
the Phillies are the best option for him.
Absolutely.
But I've got him actually heading to Baltimore. Obviously they went from pretty much learning to crawl to an all-out sprint just last year. This is a team that, their big knock getting in the playoffs is how do you like their pitching in a best of 5, best of 7. Obviously, that turned out to be a big factor for them, but I've got them going with Nola, and obviously he's still got that command that we saw this past year, and I think he could help out Baltimore.
Absolutely, they would be getting a staff ace there. I think Orioles fans would be very excited if they were able to open their checkbooks for that one. Next on the list, we got another lefty, Jordan Montgomery. I have him going back to the St. Louis Cardinals. So he was actually there at the beginning of 2023, traded to the Texas Rangers, and ended up winning the World Series with them. I kind of think it's, if the Cardinals were in contention, I don't think they were necessarily trading Jordan Montgomery, but one of the rare times that St. Louis was out of the playoffs at the trade deadline, and it was definitely a prudent move to go in there, get some prospects back for him. So I think they're going to be looking at some starting pitching for sure. I think a guy like Montgomery, not necessarily the top of the free agent starting pitching market, so maybe you're able to save a little bit more money. Cardinals aren't always the big money spenders all the time, so I think somewhere like 6-150 might fit sort of deal for them.
Yeah, a solid pitcher, gets ahead in the count. I mean, right off the bat, you have to love that. I've got him going to Boston. Obviously, they saw him coming up with the Yankees. They saw him plenty of times over the years. When you're coming off that World Series championship, your price tag goes up a little bit more. But I think the Red Sox certainly need pitching, can afford that.
Absolutely, it fits for sure. Next guy on the list, third baseman Matt Chapman. So, kind of a few up and down years, but he landed in Toronto and kind of put together a nice walk here. I think he kind of benefits from being one of the top bats on this market. If this was last year, he's a little bit lower. Probably he's not going to cash out as well. But I think this is another guy that kind of benefits from the Giants seeking some bats. And they recently hired his old manager from Oakland, Bob Melvin. So I think, that sort of familiarity helps the fit there. So I think, Matt Chapman sliding in there at third base for the Giants would really be a solid addition for them.
I'm thinking Milwaukee for him. Obviously, the home runs, they've had dropped a little bit, but he still is a great contact hitter. The doubles were up there this past season compared to others. And, I know he's a big priority for the Blue Jays this offseason, but, I just think Milwaukee's been a place that's desperately in need of a quality player at third. And I think just over the past few years, they've been lacking that. So I think he's an automatic improvement for the Brew Crew.
Absolutely. And I think just kind of out of the Blue Jays price range just because of where he is going to be in free agency. So speaking of another guy who's going to cash out in free agency, probably the top reliever on the market, Josh Hader, left-handed reliever. Definitely going to leave San Diego in my mind. I don't think there's any way they're bringing him back. They're already talking about how they want to cut payroll. So I think the Texas Rangers, the World Series champions, are going to go out. It was, the Achilles heel of their team in the regular season. I think the bullpen at one point had over 5 ERA. They had more blown saves at one point than they had actual saves. But in the postseason, they really came together. Leclerc, Josh Sborz, Chapman. So, Chapman is a free agent. So I think, the Rangers are kind of at a weird place as compared to other teams where they have a lot of starting pitching depth. And they have a couple guys coming back from injury. You're expected DeGrom to come back next year. You didn't have Scherzer at the beginning of the year. You're going to have him next year as well. So I think that they are going to look to focus on the bullpen. I think Josh Hader is a guy who's probably going to break the $100 million mark here for a reliever. And I think that's who they bring in.
I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies. There wasn't too many places in Pennsylvania you could say the name Kimbrel for a few weeks there. So I think, no one's ready to talk windows in Philly. This is a team that is built to be, they want to be a dynasty, obviously. And I think if you want to send a message after they did what they did last season, especially in the offseason and their signings, I think one of the biggest ways you can do that is by going out and signing Hader.
Absolutely. I think, Phillies fans would be absolutely ecstatic for that. The bullpen there has been a long issue in Philadelphia, and again, they'll expect to address that this offseason. So next on the list, another veteran pitcher, Sonny Gray. A lot of different places, you could have him land in, but I kind of think somewhere like the Toronto Blue Jays kind of fits. They're going to be looking for some starting pitching depth this offseason, and they're also going to be, obviously looking to compete in that American League East. This is a team, that is, again, also trying to be built for right now. So I think somebody who's right in his prime, veteran pitcher like Sonny Gray kind of fits what they're trying to do.
I'm leaning towards the Cardinals. Sonny's been very adamant about wanting to be closer to home this offseason. I think, obviously, St. Louis certainly fits the bill from that. He's from Tennessee. Obviously the Cardinals are going to be in on some other pitchers, but I think from a money standpoint, they might miss out on some of the bigger free agents there. So I think Gray's a good fit for St. Louis.
Absolutely. So here with Shota Umanga, okay, another one I'm doing all right on. I think we kind of flip-flopped here on the teams where we're going to go with because compared to Yoshibo Yamamoto. So here I have Shota Umanga going to the Mets, left-handed starter, who's looking to come over, and I think kind of the same thing we had talked about before. They had added Kodai Senga last offseason. He had a really great rookie season. I think there's probably a level of comfortability there. And the Mets are kind of at that weird spot where I don't know necessarily 2024 is what their focus is, but you're going to sign this guy obviously to a longer-term deal, have him for a few years. So you're not necessarily looking for him to come in 2024, pitch the lights out, but get comfortable 2025.
Yep, I've got him wearing pinstripes. Another player whose profile was certainly raised in the World Baseball Classic that we saw. But yeah, Yankees coming off their worst season in decades, so they need to make a whole host of moves. And they wouldn't have to worry about draft pick compensation with him. I think that's a big thing. So I think that just makes them more attractive to him. But it's going to cost them, and that's never been an issue.
No, and I think this offseason they're going to be spending the money.
Yes.
Absolutely. Another team I expect to spend some money this offseason is Chicago Cubs, and that's where I have Eduardo Rodriguez landing. Kind of a weird 2023 for Eduardo Rodriguez. He was attempted to be traded at the trade deadline, actually turned it down to the Dodgers. That would have been a really great fit, especially they were looking for starting pitching going down the stretch of the season. So I have him landing with Chicago, not too far from Detroit. So if he likes that area, whatever, cool. You're still within range of your family, whatever you have going on there. But I think more for the Cubs, it's that left-handed starting pitcher that they can put at the top of the rotation. You pair him with Kyle Hendricks, Justin Steele. You have a pretty formidable three at the top of your rotation.
I'm going to go with the Dodgers. I mean, as you mentioned, they wanted him at the trade deadline, and he he stamped down that no trade clause, but I think now the Dodgers can kind of get the guy they want, but the guy gets him or gets the team at his price. So I think that's the perfect fit for them, and obviously we all know the Dodgers are trying to improve there. So
I could absolutely see it, but I want to know what's going through his mind. Why I would turn it down? You could go. It's just kind of a crazy situation. I'm guessing, from what I've read, there are no geographic restrictions for his free agency now. So I'm guessing, obviously, talk with his family made it right. Something that he's able to go play wherever he wants to play this year. Outfield bat Teoscar Hernandez, kind of a power bat. He had a little bit of a down year in Seattle, a little bit more strikeouts, a little bit lower average, but he's a career 282 hitter with 14 home runs at Fenway Park, and I kind of feel like that's just the perfect location for a right-handed power bat there to bounce off that wall. They're going to be looking for a guy in the outfield. I think they're going to be doing a little bit of reshuffling there. I think Alex Verdugo is on the way out there, but a nice right-handed bat to put in between Rafael Devers, Tristan Casas. I think that fits nice for Boston.
I'm going to go back to LA and going right back with the Dodgers again. Obviously, not getting the qualifying offer from Seattle, but the Dodgers, I don't know if I've seen the team go as cold as they did towards the end of last season. I think when you're looking for a spark in any way, shape, or form, obviously Hernandez can give you that.
Yep, I think it's one of those off seasons where the MLB powers are going to spend the money for sure. Next on the list, you got Heimer Candelario, third baseman, had a really great season. Started with Washington, ended up getting traded to the Cubs. Had a good solid season, and it set himself up well for a free agency. Switch hitter, and after Toronto loses Matt Chapman in free agency, I kind of think this is where they pivot, a little bit of a cheaper option, still a nice switch hitter, balanced bat, and then they have a top prospect, not expected to be ready, for the start of the year, but having Candelario there, he can play a little bit of first base as well, slide over. I think that'll fit for the Blue Jays.
I just want to say ditto, but yeah, I've got him also heading over to the Blue Jays. Big hole at third there when Chapman leaves town, so I think that's just an automatic fit.
This is like one of the few that we agreed on, but that makes for a better list, man. That's awesome. Luis Gurriel Jr. had a really great season with the Arizona Diamondbacks, his highest power year so far. Definitely a career year, and now I think he's going to be able to cash in on that in free agency. I think a lot of different teams should be looking for him to add him, and one of those teams I think will be the Seattle Mariners for sure. Have already come out. Jerry Dipoto said that they want to look for high contact hitters. He's a career 279 hitter, a little bit lower last year with the Diamondbacks, but had a little bit more power. I think adding him with Julio Rodriguez in your lineup definitely makes the Mariners a little bit more formidable there.
Yep, and I've got him going to the Yankees, and he's already said goodbye to Arizona on social media, so I think that's all but said and done. But yeah, man, the Yankees, especially the middle of their lineup last year, was just a barren wasteland for everything. I think he obviously would be a huge thing. Obviously we've heard the trade talks about Juan Soto going to NY as well. But, I think he just would be a good fit for the Yankees.
Absolutely. Maybe my favorite player in all this one is Jung-Ho Lee, coming over from the KBO. Grandson of the Wind is his nickname.
I read that too.
Oh, my gosh. How could you have a better nickname? So, coming off 2022, had an incredible year, hitting 349, 23 home runs, 113 RBIs while playing center field. But then had an ankle injury in 2023. So, of course, with that comes a little bit of the doubters. Is he ready to make the jump? I've seen, some scouts say, yes, he's going to be able to play center field. Other ones want to nitpick a little bit. Those New York Yankees definitely need a center fielder. I believe probably Juan Soto is going to end up there as well. But in the middle of him and Aaron Judge, Jung-Ho Lee would look great, and especially left-handed bat at the top of that lineup for New York.
And I've got him going out to San Francisco. Obviously coming off that injury, but everything we've heard about him can expand the strike zone there. Scouts like the defense in center field and his performance against some of the best in the world baseball class, only helping his reputation there. So I think San Francisco, they've also had scouts and the GM going over to scout him. So I think this is a pretty good sign.
Absolutely, for sure. Jorge Soler, one of the power bats from Atlanta's World Championship a few years ago, is out here on the free agent market after a 2-year deal with Miami. First year wasn't the best. Comes back last year, had a lot better of a season, setting himself up here. I think a team like the Detroit Tigers, they already made one of the first moves of the offseason and traded for Mark Canha, right-handed bat, trying to add some experience, to their order. And I think, when you're looking to add some power, replacing Miguel Cabrera at the DH spot there, Jorge Soler is a good fit, not going to break the bank there for Detroit.
And I've got him heading to Toronto. Former World Series MVP, obviously. You know, you're always going to get turn heads when you have that title. But Toronto obviously isn't happy about their short postseason trip. So they need to bring in some impact players. And you also need to show Vlad Guerrero Jr. that you're not wasting his prime years by actually bringing in somebody that can help compete.
Absolutely. Another guy, this begins a little bit of the run of arms where they're kind of trying to remake themselves after rough 2023. Lucas Giolito, almost a 5 ERA. You know, this was a guy that was dominant in stretches even just a couple years ago with the Chicago White Sox. Actually ended up pitching for 3 different teams in 2023. So I think, you know, he's looking for a 1-year deal to kind of remake himself. I think a spot like the New York Mets, probably perfect for him. You know, a nice spacious city field to pitch in, you know, not necessarily going to get beat around with the home run ball as much. So I think that might be a nice spot for him to land.
And I've got him going to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be looking at their roster, trying to sign people. But, you know, both Anaheim and Cleveland did not work out for him. So I think heading to Arizona, you know, there's a little bit less pressure from the media standpoint out that way. But at the same time, you have seen what they can do and their expectations. So I think there's a want for him out there, but they also won't have to pay him what they would have back in maybe 2021. So more of a risk than, you know, going out for like a Nola, but at the same time, it could have a bigger upside.
Right, and Arizona's going to be in that tier of arms where they're a little bit more mid-tier, not going to have to break the bank for sure. Another team, kind of that same mindset and the same talk with the Seattle Mariners of I'm not gonna, you know, we're gonna cut down payroll a little bit this year, is the Minnesota Twins, and they have a bevy of pitchers that are leaving, you know, both the starting rotation and the bullpen. So I do think they have to add somebody. So I think somebody like Marcus Stroman kind of fits them pretty well. You know, not necessarily going to break the bank, probably still a $20 million a year guy, still can add him towards the top of your rotation, still help you stay competitive in that AL Central for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking Mariners here. Walking away from $24 million on the table there, so you know, obviously he's got some high expectations. But tale of two halves for him this past year. But still, Seattle just missed out on that postseason after what was a resurge in 2022. So they know they need to bring in some pieces to get back into that playoff track. And again, this is that low risk, high reward possibility here with a pretty good pitcher here.
When you walk away from that $24 million, usually banking on that $25, I just don't see it. That's a lot out there, especially for him. And like you said, tale of two halves, and the better half was not at the end. So Seth Lugo, a guy, one of the few guys on this list that are kind of bounced through the rotation and the bullpen in their careers. Finally wanted that chance to get in the starting rotation with the San Diego Padres last year. Pitched pretty well, you know, not anything underwhelming in any way, shape, or form. 26 starts, and has shown, you know, obviously he has that ability to pitch in the bullpen as well. I do think in free agency he is going to be seeking that chance to start, but he's not, again, one of these pitchers that's not necessarily going to break the bank. I do think the Boston Red Sox are going to be out here adding a couple arms in free agency, and I think he fits pretty well. You know, if he doesn't work out with a starter, we can move him to the pen, but I think that's a good landing spot for Seth Lugo.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Cubs here. You know, he did showcase, you know, he can be a big league pitcher on a starter if he wants to soak through some time in San Diego, but, you know, as a free agent, I think he doesn't face unreal expectations heading into the Cubs rotation. Not as much pressure there, but they already have some established pieces, but, you know, obviously pitchers always
Absolutely. Power bat JD Martinez kind of had a comeback year with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Showed he has some pop left in the tank there with 33 home runs. You know, I just came across an interview not that long ago. He was a former member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had actually traded for him mid-season, making a playoff run. I think it was 2017, 2018. And he said, you know, I wish I had never left. So, hey, the Diamondbacks coming off a World Series run obviously need to add that right-handed power bat. He's not necessarily going to break the bank. So I think reunion with JD Martinez kind of fits what Arizona is looking to do right now, stay competitive.
I'm going to lean towards the Angels here. Obviously, he's a perennial all-star. Teams know what they're getting with him, but also know that, you know, the Angels are not going to win the Ohtani sweepstakes. I don't think that anybody's thinking that. So turn your attention to Martinez. You're still getting that perennial all-star, and you know, obviously a good replacement. They could step in and produce. Maybe not obviously the same numbers, but he's still solid.
Absolutely. Moving back to the bullpen with Jordan Hicks, right-handed arm. Yeah, he's faced a lot of injuries throughout his career, but 2023, one of his best years. He actually appeared in 65 games between the St. Louis Cardinals and Blue Jays. So I think, another one of these teams I said is going to be the big spenders is the Dodgers. So I think, they're going to be looking to add to the back of the bullpen, facing the loss of a couple different arms there, a couple veterans, Blake Trinan and Daniel Hudson. So I think a guy like Jordan Hicks really fits what Los Angeles is looking to do in the bullpen.
I'm thinking the Houston Astros. Obviously, they're going to have to pay to keep that World Series window open because obviously they've got some big contracts coming up, not this offseason, but next. More teams are obviously going to be trying to pick people off of them, so they could be maybe a more reasonably priced landing spot for the reliever. But, he's still young enough that he can carve out a spot there in Houston.
Absolutely. Closers roll a little bit wide open right there, I think, for them after Ryan Presley. Jack Flaherty is a free agent for the first time in his career, coming off a year where it was probably his worst. He limped to about a 5 ERA with the St. Louis Cardinals traded midseason to the Baltimore Orioles. Didn't show the best with the Orioles. I was thinking about keeping him there, but I do think he's kind of a guy who's going to look to rebuild himself here with a shorter-term deal. I do think a team like Detroit is going to be looking to add to their rotation, looking at a guy who, hey, if it does work out, and he's healthy, he's shown that he has flashes of being a top of the rotation arm, and I think Detroit would really want to cash in on that. So I think a short 2-year deal might be able to bring him in for the Tigers.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the Orioles. Baltimore obviously had huge expectations for him after trading for him at the deadline, but did not go his or the Orioles' way in the way they thought it could. 6.75 ERA is not that's not going to get you any baseball cards. But performance did knock down his price tag, which I think Baltimore usually likes.
Yes.
So obviously, it can help them out by getting him maybe working his way back to form, and at the same time, he can work towards a bigger payday.
100%. Mitch Garver comes in here at 23rd on the list. Basically a DH at this point in his career. He used to be a little bit more a catcher, but injuries and just time at the DH spot have really dwindled that. So I think a team that's going to commit to Garver has that time that they're going to commit to him at DH, and I think a rival team like the Mariners, who just saw him with the Rangers for a long time, going to have some at bats to give. I think they fit what Garver would provide for them. So I think he's a right-handed power bat that would fit real nice for the Seattle Mariners.
I'm gonna go Angels again. Obviously this postseason showed that Garver's not afraid of the spotlight, the limelight. Really produced for Texas down the stretch there. But obviously the Angels are gonna have a lot of money all of a sudden to spend. So I'm thinking he's gonna head out to Anaheim. They've seen him. They've watched him from the other dugout, so they know what to expect.
Absolutely. So you have the Orioles loading up on a couple pitchers. I finally have them adding one as well. Michael Wacha. So again, not a top of the rotation necessarily arm, kind of more of a mid-tier guy, but if you look at his numbers, he had like a sub 3.35 ERA the past couple of years. He's 25-6 over the past 2 seasons, so he's actually performed pretty well. I think this is the kind of the guy that they're going to target, not necessarily someone that is going to cash them out, but somebody that they can afford and should still be help them be competitive, still an upgrade over what they had last season.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Yankees, maybe, you go out and get yourself a solid number 3, maybe number 4 there. Last season, San Diego, 3.22 ERA, 24 starts. That's a solid, steady arm there for you. But, I think he's going to be obviously the less expensive option compared to some of the other arms that are available.
Absolutely. Number 25, we have Kenta Maeda I have him going back to the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's an arm that, he's come back from injury the past couple years with the Minnesota Twins, performed pretty well last year. And I think, like we've talked about, the Dodgers are going to be in sore need of starting pitching depth. They have a lot of guys that are going to be injured at the beginning of the season or out all of next year. And I think a veteran guy on a short-term deal like this would fit for them. So I think Kenta Maeda reunites with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I'm going to go back to Baltimore for this one. We talked at length about some of the younger Japanese pitchers available, but, he's 36. They know what to expect from him. Has had some elbow injuries over the years, but, he is a Scott Boras guy, so obviously, he's going to get the money that he wants. But, I think Baltimore, you don't have to give him an extended contract, obviously, But, I think he'd be a good fit for the O's, and obviously they have a bar that they're trying to achieve.
One of the few guys that we do agree on this list is Rhys Hoskins. He is basically, it is a done deal. He will not be a part of the Phillies next year. Bryce Harper will be playing first base, Kyle Schwarber at DH, so you don't really have a spot for Rhys Hoskins to get those everyday at-bats. And obviously he is coming off an ACL tear, looking to rebuild that value. That shows that, he's one of the top right-handed power bats in the game. So I think a team looking to add that offense is the San Francisco Giants. And obviously we have them both playing at the top of the market at a couple different other spots. But I think Hoskins is that good value for them, not necessarily, $100 million guy right now, but you can bring him in. Maybe he's, what he was for the Phillies, and you got quite a value there, probably, 2 for $20 or something like that.
Yeah, he grew up in Sacramento,
Yep.
Grew up a Giants fan. Not saying you're going to get a hometown discount, but, he might knock off a few.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a California guy, as always. Talked about, I believe his dad still lives there, wanting to play out in California, so I think that's chance for Rhys Hoskins. Robert Stevenson ends up being one of the top right-handed arms in relief on the market. Really put it together with the Rays last season after, kind of struggling in the early parts of his career. He's always had the big arm, always had the potential to be there, but of course the Rays are able to bring a lot of different stuff out with their pitchers, whatever that they're keying in on. With their pitching coaches, so I think he kind of cashes in here, and kind of like I've said with a couple other guys so far, I think the Texas Rangers are going to add to their bullpen in here and bring in Stevenson. Like I said, now with his performance last year, you can try to lean on him in the late innings, but I think he fits even better in the middle. If you have 7, 8, 9 sort of set up here, and him in the 7th, that'd be a real strong bullpen for the Rangers.
I've got them hanging around Tampa Bay for a little bit longer. You mentioned, the magic that they're always seem to be able to work with some of these pitchers. Really developed his slider over the past year. But, I think if he continues to kind of right the ship and get stronger, it's worth it to him and the Rays to keep it going if the price is right for both sides.
Absolutely. One of the more intriguing arms on the list is Yariel Rodriguez out of Cuba, and then also played a little bit overseas in his last action. My issue here is I don't really know what role he's going to fill in the major leagues. He has been mostly a starter in his career. Most recently saw some action out of the bullpen. That could also be because, he hadn't seen some action in some time, so, he had to pitch out of the pen. I think a team that is going to be able to afford a gamble like the New York Mets can bring him in. He's not necessarily someone that you're counting on for this year, but you can kind of see what you have in there, and it might be a big boom for you. I think that a team like the New York Mets makes a play for Yariel Rodriguez.
I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Obviously we saw him get a nice boost from the World Baseball Classic, but, there was half the league showed up for his showcase in the Dominican Republic. Pittsburgh was among them, and, the Buccos can obviously use his arm, and ownership also needs to show the fan base that they're actually willing to make an investment and spend some money.
Yes, I think that would go miles there in Pittsburgh. They were able to open up their wallets just a little bit. Reynaldo Lopez I have here on the list at number 29. Became a reliever the past couple seasons here with the Chicago White Sox. Pitched for a couple of different places last year as well. Found some success, after struggling in the rotation. He's always had that big arm, but now out of the bullpen, he's up there, 99. He's really touching that gas. So I believe a team kind of like the Padres. We talked about, they're aiming to cut that payroll, but they're going to lose arms like Hader and a couple other bullpen arms. So I think they aim to find a closer a little bit cheaper. A guy like Lopez, might only cost you about $10 million a year. So I think that's where they go to add their next closer.
Yeah, when you think about the clubhouses he pitched, and there was a lot of chaos surrounding the White Sox, the Angels, but he was still solid for the most part. I'm going to go with Seattle here. He trained in Seattle before last season, so obviously, he's familiar with the region. He's comfortable up there, and that's not nothing for free agents.
Absolutely. Mike Clevenger, man, this is another guy, another California guy that I think is going to look to go home. Struggled with some injuries the past couple years, only 46 starts over the past couple years, not able to make that 30 start range, and coming off an elbow injury, I think about 3 years ago now, really, looking to establish that he's one of the top of the market guys again. So I think a team like the Angels, have a need in the starting rotation, and they are not going to be looking to break the bank, and Clevenger obviously looking to reestablish himself. I think they can find a short-term deal that they come to agreement on.
Yep, and this is one of those other few ones that we're in agreement here. I'm going Angels as well. Obviously, he's not a top of the rotation guy these days, but he did have 24 starts last season. That's not nothing. But many thought that he would land with Anaheim last offseason. I think they kind of worked their way back this time around.
Absolutely right. Moving out to center field, I got Kevin Kiermaier here going to the Minnesota Twins. Last season, he established that he can stay healthy a little bit with the Blue Jays. But the Twins, they've been trying to keep Aaron Buxton healthy pretty much his entire career. Unfortunately, it did not work last year, even though he was solely the DH, and instead they were deploying Michael Taylor out in center field. So you have a Gold Glove caliber center fielder, which is exactly what Kiermaier is. So I think you replace Taylor with Kiermaier. Issue there is Kiermaier has also had some injury issues in his career, so you're kind of holding your breath there if you're the Twins.
Yeah, obviously those injuries created the gap in Minnesota. I've got him going Twins as well, but with Taylor heading out of town, and again, nobody really knows when Buxton is going to be 100%. Still a question mark. I think he could be a big answer for them this offseason.
Absolutely. Nick Martinez out in the rotation or the bullpen, man. This is another guy for the Padres that pitched a couple roles for the last couple years after coming back from pitching overseas. And I think, a team like the Chicago Cubs, that I've had them adding a couple pitchers. I think a guy like him fits really well. He's either an end-of-year rotation guy or you can slide him right back in the bullpen, and I think that versatility will appeal to multiple teams, but I think a team like the Cubs that could use him fits as well.
I've got him going to the Cardinals. Obviously, Martinez just one of the names that's going to be in that exodus leaving San Diego this offseason. But he wanted that starting spot, but a lot of the times found himself coming out of the pen. But pitchers are like insurance. You can never have enough. So I think the Cardinals can get ahead of the pitching market with players like Gray, as we mentioned earlier, and then Martinez.
Next on the list, we have the Cuban Missile, Aroldis Chapman. I have him landing with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I kind of think that this is a good spot for him. They're going to be looking to add to that back end of the bullpen. And after a year where it wasn't, necessarily the best walk year with the Rangers, I think he's still able to capitalize, land a good deal here with the Dodgers.
I've got him going to the Lone Star State, but I'm not going to be with the Rangers this time around. I'm going with the Astros. Houston's really gotten the better of him a lot in the postseason, especially in recent years here. So obviously, I think they've gotten better in most cases from him. Can't beat him, join him.
Absolutely.
Bregman, Altuve, they're both going to get paid next year. So if you're trying to sew up one last shot, one last big run here, pitching's not getting any younger there. So you bring in Chapman, 1 year, maybe 2 year deal. But, as we mentioned earlier, they've got some questions when it comes to relief and closing.
Absolutely. Another arm that could use in the rotation of the bullpen, Michael Lorenzen. Coming off a year where he started with Detroit, gets traded to the Phillies, had a couple great starts, including a no-hitter, and then kind of faded, after that no-hitter. They moved into the bullpen and kind of expected that in the playoffs and just kind of faded as the season went on. So was career high in innings pitched for him. Maybe he comes back able to pitch a little bit better. I do think he's going to continue to seek that chance to start. I do think Toronto has a spot for him that they could offer him in the rotation, and same issue there. If he's not pitching that well in the back of the rotation, you can move him to the bullpen, still be a valuable arm for you there. So I think the Blue Jays are a good fit for him.
All right, and I'm going to go the Colorado Rockies. Obviously, always continuing the search to find pitchers that want to call their the hitter's favorite ballpark in the MLB home. But yeah, mixed bag of results with the Phillies, and I think Colorado kind of gives him a chance that if he wants to work his way back into that rotation role, they can do it.
Absolutely. Next on the list, I have Sean Manaea. Another guy kind of looking to reestablish his value, especially after coming off a year with the San Francisco Giants, actually demoted to the bullpen for the first time in his career. I think a team like the Milwaukee Brewers are going to be looking to add to the rotation. Brandon Woodruff suffered a big injury, going to be out all next year, and I think that they can kind of offer him that chance to rebuild his value, a chance to start in the rotation.
I'm thinking the Pirates. This kind of seems like their type of player here. They can get him for a less expensive option here, but also kind of work to see maybe he can fill one of those rotation roles, or worst comes to worst, pull him out of the pen if need be. So I'm thinking Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. Okay. Moving back to the outfield, Harrison Bader, a guy who's kind of jumped all over St. Louis, New York in the past couple years. I kind of think the Angels are going to be looking for a guy to play the outfield. I feel like injuries in the Los Angeles Angels outfield are all the time, man. Mike Trout obviously hurt. Yeah, Moniak suffering injuries. Joe Adele, the list goes on and on. So I think adding Harrison Bader to that center field mix, you could platoon him with Mickey Moniak, officially move Trout to one of the outfield corners, try to keep him healthier. I think that's a good fit for him there.
I've got him going back into the pinstripes. I don't think it's going to cost them that much to bring him back to New York, but even after he was claimed by Cincinnati last year, he talked about how much he would love to be back in the pinstripes at some point or another. But, just it would be a nice little compliment to, as long as he can stay healthy, to a very busy offseason for New York.
Absolutely. One of the Baltimore Orioles picks for me is adding Tyler Mahle, the rotation now. Going to be out a little bit, suffered that Tommy John surgery, so this is, a little bit more of a multi-year commitment. You might not necessarily see him at the start of the year, but more towards the middle, and then, really get, hopefully a full recovered version in 2025. I think a team like the Orioles is a perfect team to recover with. They just did this exact thing with John Means, came back at the end of last year, so you have a team already went through it with the pitcher, and then also they're competitive and not necessarily looking to break the bank. I think it's a good fit here for the Orioles.
I'm leaning towards Detroit. Obviously, whoever's going to sign him has to be willing to wait. Detroit's obviously not seen as a very big landing destination for most of the big signees here, but obviously they could be willing to pay a little bit more and wait for him.
Absolutely, and Detroit obviously looking to become competitive in the next couple of years as well. Gio Urshela has just kind of fallen off a cliff the past couple of years in terms of offensive production. Once launched 20 bombs with the Yankees, all the way down to 2 last year with the Angels. Kind of fell off, just a bench player only getting into 60-something games. So I think the perfect place to rebuild your value is Coors Field. And a team like the Rockies, they are starting to integrate a little bit more young players onto their roster, especially in the infield. But I think at third, first base, you can even play him a little bit at second base as well. Gio Urshela kind of fits there. Not somebody you're going to have to pay a ton for, but somebody who could be a boom bat for you and also help, you integrate your young players as well.
I'm thinking the New York Mets. They need some infielders. They need some help at third. Demands won't be too much on him coming off of rehabbing that injury from last season, but I'm leaning towards the Mets.
Another infielder looking for a home is Ahmed Rosario, actually probably coming off what was his career worst year with the Indians and then traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers there at the deadline. I think just looking for a chance to start is probably his big thing. The Miami Marlins have a couple middle infield spots open, kind of in flux with whatever they decide to do with Jazz Chisholm after he played some center field last year, former infielder as well. I think he fits there. You can play him at second, play him at shortstop, play him in center field if you want. So, and if not, he's your utility guy. I think the Marlins, not going to cost you a ton. Fits.
I'm thinking risk versus reward Pirates guy again. So, as long as he's not too zoned in on playing shortstop, he could move to second. Obviously, be a huge compliment. Keep Brian Hayes, O'Neill Cruz on that side.
The Pirates and Orioles fans gotta be loving what your offseason is entailing. Whit Merrifield, this is kind of an interesting one here in the fact that I have read for years that the White Sox just love Whit Merrifield. And obviously he was one of their rival players with the Kansas City Royals for a long time. So I think, obviously they've had a lot of chance to see him in person, a lot of chance to see what he can do on the field. Maybe there's a leadership thing in there. I don't know if they like the veteran quality in that. And obviously they're overturning the whole culture over there in the White Sox. So I think Whit Merrifield, somebody they target, seems like somebody they want to bring in. They have some holes in the middle infield. Feels like a fit here.
I'm going to go with the Sox team, but I'm thinking the Red Sox.
Okay.
Obviously, Blue Jays declined the option, sending him into free agency, and Boston has seen him play with the Blue Jays. So I think he could be the leadoff hitter that Boston's really kind of been lacking over the past few seasons.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a fit for sure. Justin Turner, Boston Red Sox last year, coming off a really great year with them. And I think, just kind of looking, maybe to 1 year stop it the rest of his career, try to go to the competitive teams. I have him going to the Diamondbacks. I think it's a decent fit here. I think the Diamondbacks probably going to have to move somebody to acquire some pitching, so I think that might make this fit a little bit easier. He's not necessarily at third base a ton anymore, but more first and DH, so I think that's how the Diamondbacks would have to work him in. But man, that would be quite the addition, I think, for that team.
Yeah, I've also got him going out to the desert. Obviously, they want to build off that buzz that is surrounding them, which, they have not had out there in the desert often. He's familiar playing against that team in that division, so, brings a name that knows how to win a World Series, which is huge, because when you think back to Arizona, they had the Gracies back then, when they won the World Series. So.
Absolutely. Jason Hayward, a veteran bat for the Los Angeles Dodgers last year, kind of resurrected his career. It was looking pretty like it was over when Chicago wished him goodbye in 2022. It was almost like a retirement sort of, he wasn't necessarily sure that he was going to get another chance. Came back back was a solid bat off the bench in the corner outfields for them. I just think the Dodgers are going to want to renew that relationship, kind of keep that going, and I think that's where he lands.
Yeah, I've got him going back to LA too. I could see Atlanta as a possible landing spot for him for the outfielder, but I think he stays in LA as long as he's okay with being used sparingly, not wanting a larger role. I think everything kind of worked out well for him and the Dodgers this past season.
After adding a bunch of arms to the rotation this offseason, I believe the Cubs are also going to focus on adding to the back end of the bullpen as well. And left-hander Yuki Matsui has struck out over 12 batters per 9 innings over in Japan over his career, and just has a chance, I think, to be a back end of the bullpen sort of arm. And I think being able to add him and not breaking the bank could appeal to a team like the Cubs.
Yeah, I've got him going to the Cubbies as well. Obviously, pitchers expected to be the big marquee thing everyone's looking for this offseason. 28 years old. Chicago has done some scouting on him already. And obviously, Chicago's a good-sized market for players that have that international appeal.
Absolutely, and they've had some success with other players there as well. Frankie Montas has just kind of had a disastrous past couple years, a lot of injuries, just kind of holding him back. Ever since he was traded from Oakland to the Yankees, it's just been pretty hard to stay on the field for him. So obviously another guy looking for a short-term deal to rebuild his value. And I think a team like the White Sox are going to have a lot of openings in the rotation. Going to be willing to let him do that. Could be a low-risk, high-reward sort of deal for the White Sox.
I've got him going back to the Yankees, and this was a tougher one to think about here, but obviously they know the good and the bad with him, and he's admitted he wasn't 100% healthy the last time that he showed up in New York, but I'm thinking the Yankees, as long as they know what they're getting this time around.
Absolutely, and for them, that's just kind of like, all right, we're going to get some value out of this acquisition for sure. I can see that. Brandon Belt, and to me, I don't know, this just feels like a Rays kind of guy, especially at this point in his career. Left-handed bat, he is first base, DH pretty much at this point in his career, so the fit isn't perfect because they do have Yandy Diaz there playing first base, but he did suffer a fair amount of injuries last season, so you can spare him some at-bats, with Belt, and spare him in the field a little bit there. I do think it's just a nice Rays kind of fit there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it will work off well because he's talking about retirement potentially this offseason, so if he doesn't go that way, I hear Tampa Bay's nice this time of year. I've actually got him going Seattle, though, because obviously the lefty would be a nice addition. It's a platoon approach. They wouldn't demand too much from him.
Absolutely. That's a good fit as well. Hector Neris coming off 2 great years with the Houston Astros. Mostly in a setup role, not the closer. In his past, just shown in the closer role in Philadelphia, he was not the best, but I think that's what he is going to seek this offseason. Free agent for only the second time in his career, and I think a rival like the Minnesota Twins would be a good fit. Another team, like we had said, talking about cutting some payroll, but they are going to lose a bevy of arms in the bullpen, so I think Neris is a guy not necessarily going to break the bank, but has that back end of the bullpen appeal that would make him an option for the Twins.
I'm thinking he's going to be a Red Sox next year. Obviously opted out of Houston, but his time as the setup man and closer really makes him attractive to any team, specifically up there in Beantown where they're looking for someone like that.
Absolutely. Jacob Junis, another guy kind of bounced through rotation to bullpen with the Giants the past couple years, but has resurrected his career, was really struggling early on with the Kansas City Royals. I think this kind of appeals to a team like the Diamondbacks. Again, a team that we've talked about, adding to the rotation, adding some arms. He's not necessarily going to break the bank. Is a back end, middle of your rotation arm. If it doesn't necessarily work out there, you can move him to your bullpen. So I think that's a good value signing for the Diamondbacks.
See, I didn't send you my second half of my list. I've got them going to Arizona, too. Obviously, this is one of those things where the Diamondbacks, as far as investment goes, it's not going to cost them a lot of money, not going to cost them a lot of years. And, again, he could work his way back into rotation if he earns it.
Luis Severino, again, on the list of arms, really trying to rebuild value, at the beginning of his career, showed some potential of top of the rotation stuff. It was an ace for the Yankees, and then struggled with injuries. So it's kind of gone back and forth between that and then some bad performance due to injuries. So I think, again, just looking for a team to rebuild a value, short-term deal. Team like the Blue Jays, they're looking to be competitive, low risk, high reward sort of deal. I think Luis Severino kind of fits with the Blue Jays.
I'm going to go with the White Sox as a landing spot here. Again, similar approach. There's not too much pressure there, kind of allowing him to work his way back closer to his 2022 form.
Absolutely. Another one on the list that you have to commit a couple years to, Liam Hendriks. Definitely going to be out all of 2024, recovering from Tommy John surgery. Obviously, nice story this season, coming back from cancer with the Chicago White Sox, but did struggle in the time that, that he was able to pitch and then suffered the injury. So a team like our Philadelphia Phillies here in Pennsylvania have been suffering at the back end of the bullpen, as we've seen in the playoffs for quite a few years. So even though it is a multi-year commitment, you're not going to see him till 2025. I think it's something that's probably worth it to a team with some money like the Phillies, that you could potentially have an all-star closer in 2025, just, waiting for, going through the team with rehab. And besides that, I don't know if you've ever seen any Liam Hendriks interviews or anything. His personality would fit the Phillies, the team so well, and I just think that that's just a perfect fit there.
I've also got him going to the Phillies. Obviously, you want to be a team that's going to be built to compete in 2025, and you have to know that now. Philadelphia certainly fits that bill, and obviously you could be making an appearance in his movie. That's definitely got to happen about his past year. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely, and then it will end with the World Series crown in Philadelphia in 2025. Tim Anderson as last guy on our list. Kind of a surprise cut a little bit for me with the Chicago White Sox. It was his worst season of his career, but he admittedly was struggling through injuries, and it was a career White Sox, but obviously they want to move on, turn the page in the culture there. So looking for that spot to rebound, kind of like some other middle infield guys I think might, be in play for them. I think the Miami Marlins are a good spot. Give him the chance to play shortstop, second base, let him lead off every day, and obviously provide that value for a team who's trying to be competitive in 2024.
The Boston Red Sox just watched one of their veteran infielders leave, so I'm thinking he's going to be heading to Beantown. Obviously it could add some depth there and give them some options at short, but with Turner heading out of town, I'm thinking Boston.
The MLB offseason is in full swing. You can keep track of all the moves at MLBTradeRumors.com. If you want to enter the contest, you can enter the contest there as well, and keep track of all our picks there as well. Thanks for joining us today.